Today marks the end of a long journey many of us have had since pretty much the beginning of this year. Mushoku Tensei episode 23 is the finale of season 1, and it hurts because I think everybody by now, if you have been watching my videos, knows how much I have been really enjoying this anime. It is easily one of my favorite series from this entire year, and to see it go away, especially without an announcement at the end of the episode for a season 2, hits hard. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that, we won't get a season 2 announcement eventually. Like, it might be a month, 3 months, maybe even half a year later, but I do believe deep down that we will get a season 2, especially with just what this episode set up, what it presented towards the end. It's not just a typical go read the light novel to find out more. It really is setting up for a season 2. So I have no doubts whatsoever. But it still hurts because we don't know when, and we're left in limbo at the time being until we know when it continues. Obviously, I can go read the light novel, but I don't know if I should, because I really have enjoyed the anime, and the anime has been spectacular from start to finish, and, I sometimes like to stay as anime only. And so it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard kind of holding back the temptation of reading the light novel and web novel to see what's going to happen in the future without a anime announcement. We'll see where that goes in the upcoming months. But for now, though, with that out of the way, let's talk about this episode. The last episode of Mushoku Tensei Season 1, Episode 23. So, first things first, I want to dive into something that's very brief, but actually very important in the episode, at least to me, as a watcher, as an anime only. It kind of threw me for a loop when I was looking at the images and all that, and I stopped and paused the episode. This image right here shows the world, the solar system of Mushoku Tensei, and if I am looking at this solar system properly, the world of Mushoku Tensei is set on a square/cube-like planet. Now, there is a lot to really take from that analysis, because one thing we can get from just the image alone is that either A, the world really is shaped like that, like a cube, or B, they just lack information, and it's kind of like how medieval times were for us, when we used to think the world was flat, etc., or there was like a drop-off point somewhere in the ocean. That's, what we can get from that image. So it's a really massive, look into the world building and how the higher-up scholars and people that have, a lot of, education in Mushoku Tensei, how they view the actual world. So I found that cool. I really do like that little detail that was thrown in at the end. It's very small. Obviously, not many people are going to catch it, or not many people are probably going to care too much for it, but I think that's really cool, because it makes me wonder now, is there so much more to the world that we're unaware of? Because we have seen, a world map. I've seen people throw around a world map or whatever on social media. I've seen people in the comments link me to a world map, and so I've seen the world map, but it never depicted a cube-like planet. So that's like I said, that's a big bombshell. So I wonder if that is indeed the case, and like I said, I'm reading the image right. Is there other continents on the other side of the planet, or do they just think it's a straight cliff and it falls off into nothingness? It's just an ocean that falls like a waterfall. Who knows? I wanted to point that out. That's a really cool detail that everybody, will just completely miss and overlook. But I guess let's actually talk about the beginning point of the episode and make my way to the ending conclusion of episode 23. So the episode, the best way to summarize the start is a new dawn. That's exactly what I get from the ending and beginning of the episode. It kind of correlates to that major message of the episode. I like the sky breaks, a new light comes in, a new dawn, a new beginning, a new journey. And that is fundamentally what this episode really does represent. I mean, we have Rudy obviously get himself up again and have his downward spiral throughout this episode. We get to see, Eris as well. We get to see, Rui. We get to see all the characters kind of going on their separate journeys. We get a status update for pretty much all of our main cast of characters throughout the journey of Season 1. So, the beginning of the episode representing a new dawn or new beginning is really fitting, and I like that beginning. I just love the way the clouds part. You see the light come out, you see people plowing the fields and all that, trying to prep up for food and all that, farms, etc. It's really nice because it shows that, civilization is moving on and, they have to continue working, and it goes along with the contrast of the episode throughout the middle middle section of Rudy being left behind. And let's actually dive into that. So we know for a fact that Rudy, he's going through a lot of, like, internal anxiety, depression, sadness, loneliness, isolation. There's just so much emotion, like, circling around inside of him. And it makes a lot of sense why he would be down in the dumps after the events of last week's episode. So him laying in bed being depressed is very fitting. He's depressed. That's really short and simple to get to the point. He is just straight up depressed. And he did not want to leave the bed because he's still racking his brain to, why did Eris leave him? What did he do? What did he do wrong? Why did she leave him? And as I've talked about already through multiple videos, you know, Eris left not because she hates Rudy, but because she loves him, and she feels like she is inferior. She feels like she isn't worthy of Rudy, and that's why she left. And this episode pretty much clarifies that with what she talks about Rudy. Like, when she states and says, like, hey, Rudy's like this or whatever, it's like, yeah, okay, it makes a lot of sense now why she left. She really feels like she is, too weak. She doesn't have the strength to be able to hold on to Rudy's hand. She's been relying on this boy that has smaller hands than her, and he's just so powerful. And so she wants to be able to live up to his expectations and get stronger. So it's really fitting, honestly, and I just like the mentality of what this episode shows, with all the characters kind of supporting Rudy and cheering him on, even though we know that is the exact opposite of what Rudy was really going through throughout the episode. And this has kind of like been a core theme, actually, throughout the journey of Mushoku Tensei. And what I mean by that is like, there's a lot of characters throughout this story that look at Rudy as someone that is, like, capable of great things, capable of doing things that are unimaginable. He's so strong, he's so powerful. We saw this through Paul, you know, Rudy's father. We saw this now with Eris. We saw this with Rui. We saw this with Roxy. We saw this now with, I believe, Sylphie at the end of the episode. You know, there is a lot of things to take, a lot of characters, you know, that believe in Rudy. And so when you see this episode, it's like, yeah, they do this, but Rudy isn't really that type of person. He have these unrealistic expectations for him, and if they really knew who he was deep inside, they probably wouldn't think that. They probably wouldn't think he's capable of everything, which is why Eris thinks that Rudy would be fine, why she left him like she did, because she never believed that he would get down in the dumps and depressed like he is right now. So that's something to take away from all this. I do like that constant theme reappearing over and over from many characters, kind of having this unexpected or unrealistic expectations from Rudy himself. But let's get back into the meat of it, which is Rudy's depression, and kind of the main centralized theme of his character since the very beginning of the story. Rudy, we know that he has been reincarnated. This is his second chance, his second life, and he has went through a lot these past few episodes, not including everything else up to that point. He's went through a lot. He's got to see a lot, and he's got to live a different life. He's got to live a more fulfilling and, I guess, open life. I mean, he even got one of his main objectives that he wanted accomplished in his previous life finally achieved. He lost his V card. But obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, because it wasn't enough to save him from the dark, depressing state that he's currently in. So what is the real problem? Well, one of the big fundamental things is that Rudy, he feels like, you know, he's been left behind. He feels like, you know, he's not worth anything. He's worthless, and, you know, he hates himself. That is the emotion and vibe I get from him throughout the episode, that he really absolutely hates himself to such a degree. He blames himself, he has regret, but because of his regret, because of his, you know, his anger towards himself, he wallows in it, and he doesn't do anything. And you can see throughout the episode he needed an excuse. One of the big things that we got was that he needed an excuse to get out of that pool of sadness and isolation and darkness, grief, and depression. He needed an excuse to be able to get up and walk outside that door. I'll talk more about that in a second, but the point I'm trying to get at is that Rudy, he's been going through a lot, and he always has shown this side of him that he hates his previous self. Every time he meets, like, you know, the man god in the dream sequence, you can see he just does not like his old form. He doesn't like what he used to be, and he wants to kind of separate himself from that. He wants to feel like he's changed as a person, and we as the audience, we have seen, you know, Rudy change. He has changed as a person, and he's very flawed, yes, but he is changing, and thanks to his interactions and his life that he's gotten, he's matured a lot. And when you see him laying down, yes, it's very similar to how he once was in his previous life, but thanks to the things that he's encountered, thanks to the experiences in his life he's got to see now with Eris and everyone he's traveled with, he has now matured a lot more to be able to tackle these problems in a different way. And unknowing to himself, he was able to pick himself up again because he has changed. If it would have been the same Rudy from episode 1 or even episode, like, 12, you know, he wouldn't have been able to pick himself up and actually get out of bed and walk out that door to try to save his mother, Zenith. I think that is an incredibly powerful character building moment for him to really just kind of represent the beginning of his journey to where we're at right now. And if I had to really kind of summarize the entirety of what episode 1 to episode 23 really was of Mushoku Tensei, I would say it is a prologue. I would honestly say that this feels like a prologue to a great journey, and that finally our main character has stepped up and matured a lot to finally make that change, to start in some shape or form realizing that he's capable of so much more instead of feeling like he's worthless, useless, and, you know, just able to actually get something done. I appreciate that. And so let's dive into that, you know, mentality a little bit more. I know I wanted to keep it kind of in order, but I guess I got into a whole tangent with Rudy. I might as well, you know, talk about him since it's a really big deal of the episode. There's multiple moments with the bubbles while, you know, he's laying, and I feel like many might assume this could mean a variety of different things, but from what I got from the bubble scenes is that it represented him just wallowing in despair, or just being drowned by loneliness and depression. That is what I got. Now, I could be wrong with that, and it could mean something entirely different that may be correlated to Zenith, because, I mean, there was a lot of ominous tones with Zenith throughout this episode. I mean, the entire section with, you know, him having a dream sequence with Zenith, and then we find out that Zenith is somewhere, and we don't really know where she's at, and it's somehow eluding the demon eye itself. It makes you believe that something really bad is going on with Zenith, so it could mean a lot of things. Like, you know, the bubbles could also represent, you know, the despair of, you know, Rudy, but also it could represent the despair of Zenith herself. And I feel like we've been kind of let off a little bit easy. When you really think about, you know, the characters that are connected to Rudy, all of our characters have kind of been A-okay. They've had their journey, yeah, they've had some hardships here and there, we know this, but they kind of survived. They're not dead. And that was one of the big things that we got to see from Paul's interaction with Rudy, that, you know, Paul should have been happy that Rudy wasn't like, you know, a mangled kid. You know, he actually, you know, was A-okay, he had his mind, etc. And, you know, this could have happened to anyone. So it's entirely possible that Zenith is not in a good state, and I feel like that ending sequence with the dream is telling to that. I could be looking at it too deep, but it definitely feels like something is wrong with Zenith, because now that we see that it appears Sylphie's okay, and like I said, I'll talk about that in a second, I feel like something has happened to Zenith, and I'm worried. I really am worried, because that would definitely drive maybe Rudy over the edge because of, you know, him potentially being a little bit too late to maybe save her if she is about to die or something. Who knows? But, yeah, I feel like just Rudy's character has went through a lot, though, and I like just at the end, he was able to walk out of the door. Even though he used his mother, Zenith, as an excuse to get out of bed, I feel like it was a beautiful moment to really just show that he does care about people, he wants to help people, but he used that, and he remembered those moments of his previous life of a kid, you know, one of his family members wanting to help him out. For instance, you know, them coming upstairs to deliver him food, and you can see from his emotion that he was very hurt by that. Like, he wasn't, like, upset. He was just like, oh, man, this kid is actually trying to help me out, and it makes me feel happy, but at the same time, you know, it was helping, or, like, the kid was helping out his mother. And you kind of fast forward a little bit, and you see the same thing happen with Zenith, but at this time, Rudy's in the kid's shoes. So, I think that it's really cool. There is a lot to take away, and we get to see, once again, how his character's changed. So, let's move on to Eris. So, this Eris stuff in this episode is really important, because it pretty much clarifies everything I talked about in my episode review last week and the following up videos afterwards, that she, you know, left Rudy because she wants to grow stronger. She's going on a pilgrimage pretty much, and she wants to be able to one day be able to beat a dragon god. Now, unrealistic expectations, but that's what she wants to do. She wants to be able to defend Rudy and make sure something like Orsted never happens once again. I do definitely appreciate that. That's a little nod, a nice nod to her character, showing that she's not going to give up and she wants to continue training and get a lot stronger. I do hope that she is actually able to accomplish just that. Which then we move over to Rui, and I think this is a very wholesome moment of the episode, and it's gonna definitely be outshined by so much else, but the Rui stuff in the episode of him interacting with these random people on the road and how they're not fearful of him, and, he's like, oh, I'm part of Dead End, and then, he reveals his true identity, and they like, oh, can we see the gem on your head? And just that entire interaction shows that his journey wasn't pointless, and that everything that he went to do with Rudy and Eris was actually important, and it did help him out in the grand scheme of things. I like to see that, and it shows that the man god, telling information to Rudy wasn't necessarily wrong. He wasn't lying to Rudy. He was definitely trustworthy to a certain extent. So that's a good moment. And I like that. We get to see the characters going on their very different journeys. And then we have Roxy. Roxy's no longer aimlessly looking around for where she needs to go. She knows what direction she needs to go. She knows that she needs to go to where Zenith is in this weird area that's in the desert. So, we're going to potentially have a Rudy and Roxy meetup very soon. That's exciting. And then we have the stuff with Sylphie. Now, I could be wrong, okay? I like I said, I mentioned it already a few times in this video, but you're not gonna tell me that that isn't Sylphie. Like, okay, I know the hair isn't green, but elf ears, the way the eyes are, the backstory of being a mentor, helping her out, etc., and just going on with the overall theme of the episode of Rudy helping people out, it's like, that looks like Sylphie. Now, it's very likely that she probably changed her hair color from green to white right now, because maybe she's doing something very similar to what happened with Rui throughout this series. Maybe, just hiding her identity and all that, people won't fear her or freak out. That's one way to look at it, or maybe something happened to her, her hair literally went white or silver, there's so many ways to really take that, but that's definitely Sylphie. There's no way that isn't her, and especially being at in a magic academy or something, it's like, yeah, this is looking to be too true. Like, it's looking to be Sylphie, and that she's giving a recommendation for Rudy to be able to join her, so there's a lot to look forward to. We have a potential meetup of Roxy, and also Rudy, but also Sylphie and Rudy meeting up potentially, so when there is a season 2, there is going to be a lot to take away from it, so like I said, I'm excited. So one last thing I want to dive into, though, before I wrap up this video, is just I want to give a shout out to the entire community that has continuously just supported these videos and left comments in the comments section, because it has been an absolute blast. I have met a lot of great people recently, thanks to just the great comment section and social media, all the talks about Mushoku Tensei. I just really want to give a shout out to all of you out there. It's been so much fun. I've had so much fun talking about this series, and like I said, it's sad to see it go, because I'm gonna miss the discussions on this series. It's been so much fun, and like I said, just shout out to all of you out there. I really have appreciated it. It's been an absolute blast, and I am very thankful so many of you out there that even have read the light novel and read the web novel were trying to be as spoiler-free as possible in the comment section. I truly do appreciate that, and just thank you so much, guys. You have been absolutely wonderful. And I guess one last thing that does need to be stated too is apparently the scriptwriter of this episode is actually the author. Like, the author of, the series, Mushoku Tensei, was helping the script of episode 23. So I think that's pretty cool as well, to throw that in there and all that. That's a nice little detail, and it's cool to see that the author really does have quite a hand in the work of this anime, and hopefully that continues to happen throughout season 2 when it, eventually comes. But I guess I'm gonna, leave it at that. Thank you so much, everybody, and you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. I'll see you all next time for the next series that we all dive into and want to really dissect. There's a lot of anime coming out in 2022, so there's a lot to look forward to, but it's still gonna be sad to see this series go. But, be safe, guys. I love you. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed my videos on this series, please leave me a like. If you like my content, please subscribe. You'll see more of it in your YouTube feed. But with that, Chibi out.